So good evening. Right. I'm Alice Gartland. Just to repeat, it's in my notes and I need to reassure myself. Okay. I'm founder of Lotus Rises, the women's swimming collective, and we're on a mission to increase visibility, access and participation of women in swimming. A very warm welcome, when I say warm, I think it's more tropical, in the current climate in this room, to our session. And we're going to be exploring how outdoor swimming is a gateway to positive change. I'm joined tonight by the fabulous journalist Becky Horsbrugh, and also swimmer Emma Watson, who is just fresh back from swimming across the channel and has a terrible, terrible cough. So thank you. Okay. So to give you a bit of background, a Lotus Rises comes from the Chinese proverb, Fu Rong Chu Shui, which means out of the water, a lotus rises. It's used to describe strong, beautiful women in water, talented swimmers, and overcoming challenges and coming into bloom. We believe that learning to swim is a human right. And whether you're undertaking your first 25 metres or splashing in tarns or crossing the English Channel, swimming is a gateway to positive change. It empowers our lives both in and out of the water. However, in the UK, women's participation in swimming is a very mixed story. Please let this work. Yes. Okay. Yet. Okay. It's a very mixed story. In the last decade, half a million women gave up swimming because of fears about the way they look. And in 2015, almost 3 times as many women than men quit swimming. And finally, and perhaps most shockingly, 1 in 5 adults in the UK can't swim. Okay, I'm doing this then. Yet, in parallel, swimming is one of the fastest growing sports in the world. Women represent over 50% of participants, and it's an activity in which women excel. Although, unfortunately, you wouldn't know that from the mainstream media coverage. Yes. Okay, for example, this August, between the 8th to the 10th of August, a lady called Sarah Thomas completed a 104-mile swim across Lake Champlain in the USA. And this woman here, Jamie Monahan, recently became the first person to complete the Ice 7 challenge. That's 7 ice miles, meaning swimming a mile in water under 5 degrees in 7 different locations around the world, including a 0 ice mile, which means swimming in water under 1 degree. And her distance swims include just a little hop, skip and a jump across Lake Geneva, which is 42.8 miles, which she completed in 32 hours and 52 minutes. These are some of the women champions of the world you've probably never heard of. Okay, so outdoor swimming is also a channel for international diplomacy. Since Lynn Cox's swim in 1987 across the Bering Straits, which helped to melt the Cold War, swim diplomats have been building bridges across the globe. This picture here is from the International Winter Swimming Championships in China, where I joined a delegation of international swimmers. I've worked on of international swimmers. They're from Poland, Russia, the USA, all over the place, Finland, and of course the UK. I think I've worked on projects to do with China for over 15 years now, and I can say this was by far and away the most positive engagement I've had with China. It was about ordinary people sharing their love of swimming and their love of the precious resource that is water. Another example of international diplomacy is Kim Chambers, an amazing swimmer who, on the 5th of May, brought together a team of international swimmers to be the first team ever to swim from the USA to Mexico. I often think that if Kim, Putin, Trump, Xi and May and all the others actually went for a swim and chilled out for a swim together, the world would be a very different place. In addition, it's really important to flag up, we only have a little bit of time, that women really, the relationship between women and water is also incredibly important. Well, it underpins basically our sustainable future. Women are often the water managers of communities and are also more vulnerable to drowning as they come into contact with water more regularly, for example, if they're washing clothes in rivers and so on. But they also play a critical role in preventing drowning, particularly amongst children, because they're often the major caregivers. Okay. Of course, every swim starts with a single splash, and I could never have anticipated where my love of water is taking me. From crossing the Solent to talking to Chinese media about water scarcity, through to representing Spice Girl Melanie C in an all-women triathlon and a 4-woman relay across the Channel and beyond. I've also become an expert, I don't know if you can see, in fancy dress and eating cake, which are the 2 fundamental pillars of outdoor swimming, by the way. And outdoor swimming has also been a gateway for creativity. It was through the water that I became a writer. It is also a liberator, known to alleviate anxiety and depression, and the water provided the sanctuary that I needed for me to rebuild my mind and body following an unfortunate road traffic accident. But perhaps above all, if I can move this, but perhaps above all, the thing I love most about it is that it is also a leveller. I still have no idea what most of the people I swim with do for a living. And for a sport where pretty much everybody gets naked most of the time, body image is irrelevant. I have never asked anyone if my bum looks big in my swimming costume. Okay. Thank you. So that's why at Lotus Rises, we're building a bridge from pool to pond, and we're starting with workshops and engagement like this, but have many more plans to help change those statistics that I've talked about and give a platform to the many swimming ambassadors from across our growing collective. There are many more adventures ahead, and I'd really love to chat to you more about our plans, so please don't hesitate to come up and chat after this session. But I'll now hand over to the wonderful Becky and Emma, 2 such inspirational ambassadors whose stories really bring to life the positive change that can happen when you take that leap of faith into the big blue. Out of the water, a Lotus Rises. Thank you.
Well, I've been a keen open water swimmer for about 10 years. Just dabbled in it for fun, really. And about a year ago, all that kind of changed. I was very ill. I was off work for 2 months, in and out of hospital, had a major operation, and I couldn't swim for about 5 months in total. And events like that often make you think about your life and think about all the things that you always say you want to do, but you never get round to doing. And a couple of things I wanted to do. I always wanted to travel to India or Pakistan. So I thought, well, once I'm better, I'm going to think about just a holiday there. Another thing as well, I was teaching swimming on the side, but I didn't have my full qualification. So I thought, right, I'm going to get my proper qualification and I can teach swimming. And that was kind of my plan once I was recuperating. But obviously at that point, I was still very much sort of just bedbound and spending a lot of time on social media. And one day I just came across this article in The Guardian, and it was about these 2 girls in Bangladesh who were hoping to play for the national cricket team. And it mentioned they lived in this place called Shripur village. And I thought, oh, this sounds interesting. So I followed a link, Googled it, and started reading about this place and found out it was basically a village that was set up as a British charity in the 1980s. And it was by a woman who was a stewardess for BA. And it's a refuge for mothers and their children. So they come from a variety of backgrounds. Maybe the women have been living in brothels with their children, or they've been found in the street. And they go and live in the village, normally for about 2 years. They teach the women a trade, get the children educated, and then once they're basically, can support themselves, then they go back to their villages and can be part of the community. So I was kind of reading about this, and I really knew nothing about Bangladesh, so I started reading about that. And just came across an article where it said that 50 children a day drowned from drowning in the country. And I just couldn't believe this figure. You think that's like 2 primary school classrooms. And then I compared it to the figures in the UK, which is normally about 5 children a year. And I just thought, this is just incredible, just horrifying figures. And I just felt I had to do something. So I found the email address for the village, and I emailed them. And I said to them, look, I don't know what I can do, but I can teach swimming, and I want to come and help. Can I come and just, for a couple of weeks, and help with the children with the swimming? And then they replied and said, well, actually, we've got this scheme coming called Swim Safe. So I was like, aha. So I Googled that, find out about this scheme that's been set up in Bangladesh and a number of other countries, where they go around and trying to, make a difference to these drowning figures. So, cut a long story short, in July I ended up going to this village, and I spent 2 weeks with them, just really assisting the teachers in the water as they were teaching the lessons. I think hopefully, we've got some photos up now. So this is, they build these ponds, these sort of structures in the ponds out of bamboo, and then they basically go through with the children, teaching them. So that's that's some of the photos from when I was there. So the schemes are run by a group they're called the CRPRB, which is the Centre for Injury Prevention in Bangladesh. And they did a massive study into drowning, and it isn't, obviously not being able to swim is part of it, but there's also other things they found from this study, that most of the children were the very young children. And in a country like Bangladesh where you've got water everywhere, what would happen in the mornings? The mothers would be doing the housework and things. Children would crawl off, and within 1 minute there's a pond, some water, and the children would drown. So what the centre is doing is not only doing the swimming schemes, but it's setting up kindergartens in the villages, so that you're also, well, at the same time you're teaching the children to swim, you're also protecting them from the dangers in a sense. So that with this scheme here, which you see in the photos, basically what the plan is for what they going around parts of the country anyway at the moment is basically making sure the children can swim 25 metres. They need to be able to tread water or float for 30 seconds, and also then perform a dry land rescue. And I mean, the great thing was that even though they were all talking in Bangla, their teaching words were in English. So we were basically using push, glide, kick, pull. So I kind of spent one day observing the teachers and then just literally joined them. And just by using hand gestures, using the odd words like that and 1, 2, 3, I was able to just help alongside the teachers. And as you can see there, I think one thing was important as well, that the girls were taught equally as the boys. And also the 2 teachers we had in the village were 2 young women. So the CRPRB scheme is actually backed up by RNLI International. And they also run lifeguarding schemes in the south of the country. And these are kind of things that a year ago I knew nothing about. I didn't know the RNLI had a massive international department, that they work in Vietnam, Tanzania. They've got this massive base which is in Cox's Bazar, which is where all the Rohingya crisis is at the moment. But they have RNLI lifeguards, trained lifeguards along the beaches there. And so, it just opened up this whole new world to me. And since I did this trip in July, putting my story on social media, I've had groups approaching me who go to countries, mainly in South America at the moment, where they take swim teachers from the UK and then they help teach children there. And so that's what my plan now is to try and look at ways of expanding help in Bangladesh. So that's my, and again, this is almost like the start of my journey, because I want to be able to do more. Next year, I'm doing a swim in January across the Bay of Bengal, which is a 10-mile swim. And my plan for that is just to help, just trying to raise awareness of this issue. And I think whenever you say that figure, 50 children a day, it does catches people's attention. So I'll be the first British person to do this swim. I think basically because most British people aren't crazy enough to go there and do it. So it's a bit of an unknown, but a lot of Bangladeshis have done it and some Indians. So that's going to be in January, and then hopefully around March, April time, I'll go back. I want to go back to the village, and I want to try and build a swim scheme for the younger children, so that from about the ages of 2 and 3, they get the kind of training, but that then, when they're a little bit older, they can go on to the schemes such as this. So in a nutshell, that's my story.
Hi. So I do apologise, this isn't normally what I sound like. So I was going to start off by saying it's a real treat to be here tonight, but quite frankly, I'd prefer being at home with Lemsip. No offence. So first of all, I have to confess, I love helping other people. I get a real kick of helping others achieve their best, and I think I achieve my best when they achieve theirs. So when in 2003 I was diagnosed with endometriosis stage 4, after 10 years of pain and suffering, I kind of made it my mission and my charity efforts towards trying to help other women be diagnosed earlier and treated for the condition. Yes, it's working. Endometriosis, for anybody who doesn't know what this is a condition that affects 1 in 10 women. And to this day, it still takes 7.5 years to diagnose on average. 7.5 years. So I've taken part in fundraising activities pretty much my entire adult life. Sorry. So my events now started raising funds for Endometriosis UK. And over recent years, these events have increasingly become swimming events. And I had to think recently about my swimming journey, because I never really thought about it. And it's always been there in the background. It's been on holidays. It's been weekly in the little 25-metre pool. And over the last few years, it's expanded and it's blossomed. And it's really, And it's gone into open water swimming, and it's gone into long distance swimming, and it's gone into, God forbid, cold water swimming. Because really, in what I think is a relatively hectic life, then and now, swimming gives me the headspace to rebuild myself. However upset or downbeat I might be when I get into the water, I'm always refreshed when I finish. Swimming for me is such a powerful gateway to health and well-being. I'm always... I know. Can I stop now? I'm always trying to get friends in the water. I promise you I won't try to get you the channel. So earlier this year, I agreed to be part of a 3-person English Channel relay. For me, swimming the English Channel was more than just me. It was about the team. It was about Endometriosis UK. But actually, the channel's huge. And I thought setting up a fundraising page for swimming the channel was a bit pathetic, really. And I thought, how can I do more? So I'm cycling into work and I'm thinking about this. And then I'm thinking about Victoria Wood. We love Victoria Wood, and we love her sketch of Chrissy, the teenager who's swimming the English Channel. She's there being interviewed at school. I've always been big. And she's been interviewed at home in her swimming cap. And it was like a eureka moment. I could walk around London in landmarks, in my swimming costume, raising awareness of endometriosis. Obviously, I thought this was brilliant. I was grinning from ear to ear on the King's Road on my bike. I couldn't wait to share my story with others and find out what they thought of it. By the time I got into work, it had totally evolved. I felt I'd grown, and I felt this campaign could also empower women to get back in the water and to shout down body shamers. It just wasn't about fundraising anymore. It was about affecting women positive. Thank you. Is that gin? That's the gin I ordered earlier. Alcoholic Anonymous. And by the time I got into work, I've missed that. It was about affecting women positively. It was about reaching out to as many people as possible in a fun way. So who should I run this past? Well, for me, this was really easy. I picked up the phone to one of the best photographers I know, my friend Laura Ward, and I picked up the phone to Alice, because who else better placed than the founder of Lotus Rises to let me know quite honestly whether this campaign had any merits. By the end of the day, we were super excited, and it was happening. The next day, I was walking down the streets of Kensington and Chelsea in my Channel swimsuit, and Laura photographing me. We had launched the campaign. I was absolutely terrified. Could this really make a difference? Could the love of swimming and waiting for the call to swim the English Channel be a portal to positive change? Could it catch people's attention enough that I could reach out to them and talk to them about the symptoms, encourage them to speak to their GPs, to their sisters, to their mothers, to their wives, to their daughters? Or was it going to totally and utterly backfire? Was I going to be once more back in the school playground, ridiculed for my body, once more body shamed in the street by total strangers because their idea of a beautiful body was not this? I was always speaking openly about the condition, desperately hoping that the openness would help another woman realise that the symptoms they were experiencing were not normal and they would seek help. But this had the potential to reach so many more people. It also had the potential to totally and utterly flop. But flop it did not. The campaign ended up lasting 3 months because we only got the call last week. We have walked amongst hundreds of people. I have written words to capture each photograph. People have stopped me in the street and asked what I was up to. Funny that. Total strangers have shared my posts. Women have gone back to their GP and spoken openly about their symptoms. Fathers have looked up the condition so they could speak to their daughters about it. Just yesterday, a friend confirmed to me that she has a consultant appointment next week because of the photograph and post I put about pain levels. Friends, colleagues, strangers are considering returning to the water. I was told I was brave to walk about in a swimsuit, but it shouldn't be about being brave. It should be about health and swimming and self-acceptance. And the more people the campaign was reaching, the more feedback I got that people were returning to the water, were fighting their demons, and were discussing the unspeakable. Followers, it's the best one. Followers were not so secretly hoping. Followers were not so secretly hoping, blatantly telling me that they hoped the call would never come because they were looking forward to the photographs and quotes every day. But last week, the inevitable happened. We got the call. We swam the English Channel on Thursday. 13 hours and 36 minutes. So the campaign stopped because we got the call. We were no longer waiting for the call. It had officially come to an end. I had to bid farewell to my followers and wish them well until our next journey. This is where I have to figure out where I'm at. Oh, here we go. So to say goodbye to this journey, I had to say goodbye to my trusted channel suit, what a shame, which I playfully did with this final photograph. Ready? Yeah. Boom!